She reached the altar smiling, then her fiancé one text that changed everything. The chapel was glowing with golden light. Flowers lined the aisle. Guests held their breath as the bride took her first step forward, smiling, radiant, trembling. With emotion, she reached the altar, took her fiancé's hand, and then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. His smile vanished. In that instant, everything shifted. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. She saw it in his eyes. Something had shattered. A secret was no longer a secret. Her knees buckled. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she collapsed. Veil tangled around her. The priest froze. The groom just stared at his screen. One message, one sentence, one name she never wanted him to see. And as silence fell over the church, only one question remained. Who sent the message and why did they wait until the altar? Isabel Monroe was the kind of bride everyone adored, kind-hearted, ambitious. Raised in a small town where she was known for her volunteer work and perfect grades. She met Daniel Harper during law school. He was quiet, reliable, the safe harbor she thought she needed after years of chaotic relationships. But even as their engagement photos were framed and shared online, Isabel carried a secret no one knew, not even her closest friends. Julian, he wasn't part of the plan. He was a former co-worker, a mistake that kept repeating. Their affair had ended months ago, or so she thought. Julian had begged her not to marry Daniel, but Isabel had chosen stability over passion, certainty over fire. Daniel, for his part, was all in. He trusted Isabel, loved her deeply. He never questioned her long hours or unexplained absences, until his phone lit up on the most sacred day of their lives, with a message from a number he didn't recognize, a name he didn't expect, a truth he didn't see coming. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Daniel noticed little things but always brushed them off. Isabel started guarding her phone more closely. She flinched when he reached for it to check the time. Her laughter seemed forced during their engagement party, her hugs slightly delayed as if she was trying to feel something that wasn't there. Once, Daniel found her crying quietly in the bathroom, makeup smudged, staring at a necklace he'd never given her. When he asked what was wrong, she smiled and said, "Just nerves." But it wasn't nerves. It was guilt. Meanwhile, Julian had gone silent. No calls, no threats, until the night before the wedding. Isabel's phone buzzed twice that night. She stared at the screen, breathing hard, then deleted the messages without opening them. But the damage was already done. She knew Julian wouldn't let her walk down the aisle in peace. And yet, she walked anyway because she thought she could control how the truth came out. She was wrong. As Isabel stood at the altar, her hands trembling, in Daniel's, she believed just for a second that she'd made it, that the worst was behind her. That Julian had given up. But Daniel's phone buzzed. One single vibration. He hesitated, glanced down, and everything changed. His jaw clenched. His eyes locked on hers, not with love, but with disbelief. The message. Read. Ask her where she was the night you were in the hospital. She wasn't with her mum, she was with me. Daniel didn't speak. He simply turned the screen toward Isabel. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted to explain, but no words came. She remembered that night. Daniel had food poisoning, alone, helpless in the ER, and she'd been in Julian's arms. That wasn't just betrayal, that was abandonment. The realization crushed her. Her body gave way, not from illness, but from the unbearable weight of guilt and shame. She collapsed to the ground, bouquet scattering across the marble floor. The crowd screamed. Daniel didn't move, and Julian, somewhere in the back, stood silently, watching it all unfold. Gasps filled the chapel as Isabel collapsed, her veil slipping off, her breath shallow. The pianist froze mid-note. Bridesmaids rushed forward. Daniel didn't flinch, just stood there, eyes locked on the screen that had shattered everything. The priest called for help. Her mother screamed her name, but Isabel's tears had already started falling, silent and fast, like something inside her had broken far deeper than her body. She reached for Daniel's hand from the ground. He stepped back. "You lied," he whispered, voice cracking. "While I was begging for you to come hold my hand in the ER, you were with him." Paramedics arrived, but Isabel refused the stretcher. She stood on shaking legs, mascara streaked, eyes hollow. That's when someone in the crowd spoke, a voice from the last pew. "Julian, I warned you," he said. "I told you not to marry him." Chaos erupted. Daniel lunged. Groomsmen held him back. Julian slipped out the door without another word, leaving behind a wedding that would never finish. A bride who'd lost everything, and a groom who would never forget. The way trust dies in an instant. The altar, once sacred, now stood stained with tears, broken vows, and the brutal cost of a single text. The wedding was never rescheduled. The reception hall, already decorated with white orchids and candlelight, remained empty that night. Staff boxed up the untouched cake while whispers spread across town like wildfire. Some blamed Julian, calling him cruel for what he did. Others blamed Isabel, saying she should have never let it go that far. But Daniel's mother said it best at the family gathering afterward: truth always shows up, whether you invite it or not. Isabel stayed out of sight for weeks. She moved out of their shared apartment and into her sister's home. The local paper ran a quiet story about the collapsed bride, but no names were mentioned. Daniel never returned her calls. She later mailed him a handwritten letter, begging, never defending. Just a single sentence: "You deserved the whole truth, and I broke that before we even began." He never replied. Julian vanished again. No one saw him after that day. But in some ways, his message did more than ruin a wedding. It exposed what had been cracking for months. What seemed like a perfect love story ended with a truth that couldn't be undone. And in that silence after the fall, everyone learned something painful. A lie can survive vows, rings, and even love. But it cannot survive the moment it's finally exposed. Isabel didn't lose Daniel at the altar. She lost him the moment she stopped being honest with herself, when she chose silence over truth, comfort over courage. The altar just made it visible. In the end, love isn't shattered by mistakes alone. It's shattered by what we hide, by what we think we can bury and carry forever without consequence. One text exposed what words never could. That betrayal has a way of finding its moment. And it rarely whispers, it waits. And when it speaks, it takes everything with it. Because sometimes, the most painful part of falling is knowing you are already broken long before you hit the ground.